I have endeavoured in this ghostly little book to raise the ghost of an idea, which shall not put my readers out of humour, with themselves, with each other, with the season, or with me. May it haunt their houses pleasantly, and no one wish to lay it by. Their faithful friend and servant, C.D.
Marley was dead to begin with.
There is no doubt whatever about that.
The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman,
the clerk,
the undertaker,
and the chief mourner.
Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to.
Old Marley was as dead as a doornail.
Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood years afterwards above the warehouse door.
Scrooge and Marley.
Sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge Scrooge, and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him.
Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge. A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire. Secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster.
Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house.
It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and you could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them.
The door of Scrooge's counting house was open, that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of tank, was copying letters and trying to warm himself at the candle.
At which effort, being a man of no great imagination, he failed.
Merry Christmas, Uncle. God save you.
It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, Fred.
Pah! Humbug.
Christmas a humbug, Uncle. You don't mean that, I'm sure.
I do. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough.
Oh, come then, what right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough.
Pah! Humbug.
Don't be cross, Uncle.
What else can I be when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas. Out upon Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money, a time for finding yourself a year older but not an hour richer, a time for balancing your books and having every item in them through around dozens of months presented dead against you? If I could work my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should.
Uncle!
Nephew! Keep Christmas in your own way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Well, let me leave it alone then. What good has it ever done you?
There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say, Christmas among the rest. But I am sure I have thought of Christmas time, when it has come round, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. Why, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year where men and women seem, by one consent, to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of those below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, Uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good, and will do me good, and I say God bless it.
If I hear another sound out of you, Bob Cratchit, you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. Quite a powerful speaker, sir. I wonder why you don't go into Parliament.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come dine with us tomorrow.
Humbug.
But why? Why?
Why did you get married?
Because I fell in love.
Because you fell in love. Good afternoon.
Nay, Uncle, but you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it as a reason for not coming now?
Good afternoon!
I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends?
Good afternoon!
I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We never had any quarrel to which I have been a party. I have made the trial in homage to Christmas. I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle,
Good afternoon!
and a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon!
To you, Bob, and to your wife, and all the assorted little Cratchits.
And a Merry Christmas to you, sir. And a Happy New Year to be sure.
Oh, there's another fellow, my clerk, with 15 shillings a week and a wife and family talking about Merry Christmas. I retired to Bedlam.
In leaving, Scrooge's nephew had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now they stood with their hats off in Scrooge's office.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago on this day.
We have no doubt his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessities. Hundreds of thousands are in want of common comfort, sir.
Are there no prisons?
Plenty of prisons.
And the union workhouses, are they still in operation?
They are. Still, I wish I could say they were not.
And the treadmill and the poor law are in full vigor then?
Both very busy, sir.
Oh! I was afraid from what you had said at first that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course. Very glad to hear it.
Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of mind or body to the multitude, a few of us are endeavouring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous?
I wish to be left alone. Since you asked me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make myself merry at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the establishments I have mentioned. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they would rather die, they better do it and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that.
But you might know it.
It's not my business. It's enough for a man to understand his own business and not to interfere with other people's. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew.
Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened so that people ran about with flaring links, proffering their services to go before carriages and conduct them on their way.
The cold became intense.
In the main street at the corner of the court, some laborers were repairing the gas pipes and had lighted a great fire in a brazier, round which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands and winking their eyes before the blaze in rapture.
At length the hour of shutting up the counting house arrived.
You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose.
It's quite convenient, sir.
It's not convenient, and it's not fair. If I was to stop you half a crown for it, you'd think of yourself ill-used, I'll be bound. And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages with no work.
It's only once a year, sir.
A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier the next morning.
Thank you, Mr. Scrooge. I will. And Mr. Scrooge, Merry Christmas.
Pah! Humbug.
Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having read all the newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with his banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. It was old enough now, and dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge.
Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except that it was very large.
It is also a fact that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought on Marley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon.
And then let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker not a knocker, But Marley's face.
Marley's face. It was not an impenetrable shadow as the other objects in the yard were, but it had its own dismal light about it.
As Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon, it was a knocker again.
He put his hand upon the key, turned it sturdily, walked in and lighted his candle. He fastened the door and walked up the stairs, slowly trimming his candle as he went.
Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it.
But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was all right. He had just enough recollection of the face to do that. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa.
Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom.
As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a disused bell that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread that he saw the bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound. But soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. The bells ceased as they had begun, together.
They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, then coming straight towards his door. It came on through the heavy door, and the dying flame leapt up as though it cried,
I know him! Marley's ghost.
Go away! Leave me alone! How now? What do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who are you then? You're rather particular for shade.
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. You don't believe in me. Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You might be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more gravy to you than grave, whatever you are. You see this toothpick? Well, if I had but to swallow this and be about the rest of my days persecuted by a legion of goblins, all of my own creation. Humbug, I tell you, humbug! Mercy! Dreadful apparition! Why do you trouble me?
Man of the worldly mind, do you believe in me or not?
I do. I must. But why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men and travel far and wide. And if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is doomed to wander through the world and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth and turned to happiness.
You're offended? Tell me why.
I wear the chain I forged in life. I've made it link by link, and yard by yard. I girded it on my own free will, and of my own free will I would. Is the pattern strange to you, or would you know the weight and length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full, as heavy, and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since, and it is a ponderous chain.
No. Speak comfort to me, Jacob.
I have none to give. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of a money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me.
7 years dead and traveling all the time.
The whole time. No rest, no peace, incessant torture of remorse.
But you are always a good man of business, Jacob.
Business? Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. Hear me! My time is nearly gone.
I will, but don't be hard on me, Jacob, pray.
How it is that I appear before you in a shape that you can see, I may not tell. I have sat invisible beside you many and many a day. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer.
You are always a good friend to me. Thank ye.
You will be haunted by 3 spirits.
Is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob? I think I'd rather not.
Without their visit, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls 1.
Couldn't I take them all at once and have it over, Jacob?
Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more. You remember what has passed between us. Remember. 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 Remember.
As the spectre backed away, the window raised itself little by little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open.
Scrooge became sensible of confused noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailings inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge and floated out upon the bleak, dark night.
The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few were linked together. None were free. The misery with them all was clearly that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost the power forever.
Whether these creatures faded into mist, or mist enshrouded them, Scrooge could not tell. But they and their spirit voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home.
Humbug.
And Scrooge, from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse of the invisible world, or the lateness of the hour, being much in need of repose, went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant.
Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and Scrooge found himself face to face with a strange, unearthly visitor. Like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions.
Its hair was white, as if with age, yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on the skin. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light by which all this was visible.
Are you the spirit whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
Long past?
No, your past.
What brings you here?
Your welfare.
Much obliged, but I think a night of unbroken rest would have been more conducive to that end.
Your reclamation, then. Take heed. Rise and walk with me.
I am mortal, and I am liable to fall.
Bear but the touch of my hand there, and you shall be upheld in more than this.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. It was a clear, cold winter day with snow upon the ground.
Good heavens! I was bred in this place. I was a boy here.
He was conscious of 1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten.
Your lip is trembling. And what is that upon your cheek?
Nothing, spirit. My eyes just watering from the cold. Nothing more. Lead on.
You recollect the way?
Remember it. I couldn't walk it blindfold.
Strange to have forgotten it for so many years. Let us go on.
They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting toward them with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts, driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits, and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it.
It's Tom! Tom Partridge! And William! Oh, there's young Wicklow! Oh, he was particularly fond of me. Wicklow!
These are the shadows of the things that have been. They have no consciousness of us. Let us go on. This is your school, but even at this festive season of the year, the place is not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still.
I know. 'Tis I, poor boy. I wish... But it's too late now.
What is the matter?
Nothing. Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should have liked to given him something. That's all.
Ebenezer! I have come to bring you home, dear brother, to bring you home, home, home.
Home, little Fan?
Yes, home, for good and all, home forever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be, that home's like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed, that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should. And he sent me in a coach to bring you. And you're to be a man and are never to come back here. But first, we're to be together all Christmas long and have the merriest time in all the world.
You're quite the woman, little Fan.
Always a delicate creature, whom a breath might have withered, but she had a large heart.
So she had. You're right. I will not gainsay it, Spirit. God forbid it.
She died a woman, I think, and had children.
One child.
True. Your nephew.
Yes.
And suddenly they were in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult of a real city were.
It was made plain enough by the dressings of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time again. But it was evening, and the streets were lighted up.
Do you know this place?
Know it? Why, I apprenticed here.
Christmas Eve, oh Christmas Eve!
Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again!
Yo-ho there, Ebenezer! Dick!
Oh, Dick Wilkins, to be sure. Oh, bless me, yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Oh, poor Dick, dear, dear.
Christmas Eve, Dick! Ebenezer, cheer up! Let's have the shutters up before a man can say Jack Robinson!
You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it.
They charged into the street with the shutters, 1, 2, 3.
Had them up in their places, 4, 5, 6.
Barred and pinned them, 7, 8, 9.
And came back before you could get to 12, panting like racehorses. There's nothing they wouldn't have cleared away.
Or couldn't have cleared away with old Fezziwig looking on.
It was done in a minute, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and bright a ballroom as you ever would have wanted on a winter's night.
Yo-ho-ho! No more work tonight, my lads. It's Christmas Eve.
In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast, substantial smile.
In came the Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable.
In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman.
In came the housemaid with her cousin, the baker.
In they all came.
One after another.
Some shyly.
Some boldly.
Some gracefully.
Some awkwardly.
Some pushing, some pulling.
In they all came, anyhow and everyhow.
Oh, what an evening!
There were dances. And there were forfeits.
And there was cake.
And there was punch.
And there was a great piece of cold roast.
And there was a great piece of cold boiled.
And there were mince pies.
And plenty of ale.
But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler, an artful dog mind, struck up, and old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig.
Top couple, too.
With a good stiff piece of work cut out for
3
them.
or 4 and 20 pairs of partners.
People who were not to be trifled with.
People who would dance and had no notion of walking.
When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their station on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas.
A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude.
Small?
Why, is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?
It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, or a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks and things so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune.
What is the matter?
Nothing in particular.
Something, I think.
No. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now. That's all.
My time grows short. Quick!
Again Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh and rigid lines of later years, but it had begun to wear the signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that had taken root and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone, but sat by the side of a fair young girl in a mourning dress. There were tears in her eyes and on her cheek.
Matters little to you, Ebenezer, very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve.
What idol has displaced you?
A golden one.
This is the even-handed dealing of the world. There is nothing on which it is so hard as poverty, and nothing that it professes to condemn with such severity as the pursuit of wealth.
You fear the world too much. All your other hopes have merged into the one hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid reproach. I have seen your nobler aspirations fall off one by one until the master passion gain engrosses you, have I not?
And what then? Even if I have grown such wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you, am I?
Our contract was an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so, until, in good season, we could improve our fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man.
I was a boy.
Your own feeling tells you that you were not what you are. I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in heart, it is fraught with misery now that we were two. How often and how keenly I have thought of this, I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it and can release you.
Have I ever sought release?
In words? No, never.
In what then?
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit. Another atmosphere of life, another hope is its great end. In everything that made my love of any worth of value in your sight. Had this never been between us, tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? No.
You think not?
I would gladly think otherwise if I could, heaven knows. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl? You who weigh everything by gain? I release you. With a full heart, for the love of him you once were. May you be happy in the life you have chosen.
No. Stop her. Don't let her go. Spirit, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me?
One shadow more.
And now the girl was a woman, ensconced in her own home, surrounded by the prosperity and comfort that comes with middle age. But Scrooge's younger self was not to be seen.
Belle, I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon.
Was it?
Guess.
How can I? Don't I know? Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge it was! I passed his office window, and as it was not shut up, and he had a candle inside, I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear. And there he sat, alone. Quite alone in the world, I do believe.
Spirit, remove me from this place.
I told you these were shadows of the things that have been. That they are what they are. Do not blame me.
Remove me! I cannot bear it. Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer.
And in the heat and confusion of the moment, the spirit was gone, and Scrooge was again alone. He was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own chamber once again.
Scrooge reeled away in amazement and sank into a heavy slumber.
Awaking in the middle of a prodigiously tough snore, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1.
Come in, Scrooge. Come in and know me better, man.
It was his own room, there was no doubt about that, but it had undergone a surprising transformation. Heaped up on the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys,
geese,
game poultry,
brawn,
great joints of
suckling
meat,
pigs,
long wreaths of
mince
sausages,
pies,
plum puddings,
barrels of oysters,
red-hot chestnuts,
cherry-cheeked apples,
juicy
luscious
oranges,
pears,
immense Twelfth Night cakes,
And seething bowls of punch
that made the chamber dim with their delicious steam.
Come in and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the like of me before.
I'm afraid I have not. Spirit, conduct me where you will. I went forth last night on compulsion. I learned a lesson that is working on me now. Tonight, if you've aught to teach me, let me profit by it.
Touch my robe.
Holly,
mistletoe,
pies,
puddings,
fruit,
and punch
all vanished instantly.
And they stood in the streets on Christmas morning, where everyone was so hurried and eager in the hopeful promise of the day that they tumbled up against each other in the doorways of shops and in the streets, crashing their wicker baskets wildly and committing hundreds of like offenses in the best humor possible.
The sight of these merry revellers appeared to interest the spirit very much, for he stood with Scrooge and sprinkled a strange incense on them from his torch. And it was a very uncommon kind of torch, for once or twice, when there were angry words between some, he shed a few drops on them from it, and their good humor was restored directly.
Oh, it's a shame to quarrel on Christmas Day.
God love it, so it is. Merry Christmas.
Is there a peculiar nature in what you sprinkle from your torch?
There is, my own.
Would it apply to any reveler on this day?
To any kindly given, to a poor one most.
Why to a poor one most?
Because it needs it most.
And perhaps it was the pleasure the good spirit had in showing off this power of his. Or else it was his own kind, generous, hearty nature and his sympathy with all poor men that led him straight to Scrooge's clerk. For there he went, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinklings of his torch.
Whatever has got your precious father then? And your brother, Tiny Tim? And Martha wasn't as late last Christmas Day, but by half an hour.
Here's Martha, Mother.
Martha!
Here's Martha, Mother. Hurrah, there's such a goose, Martha.
Why, bless your heart alive, my dear, how late you are.
We did a great deal of work to finish up last night and had to clear it away this morning.
Well, bless your heart alive, my dear, so long as you are come. Sit you by the fire, my dear, and have yourself a warm, bless you.
No, there's Father coming now, Martha. Hide!
Hide, Martha, hide!
So Martha hid herself, and in came Bob with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch and had his legs supported by an iron brace.
Why, where's our Martha?
Not coming.
Not coming? Not coming upon Christmas Day?
Oh, here I am, Father.
Oh, happy Christmas, my dear.
Come, Tim, you must hear the pudding sing in the copper.
The pudding! And how does little Tim behave?
As good as gold, and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful, sitting by himself so much. He thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he'd hope people see him in the church. And because he was a cripple, it might be pleasant to them to remember who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. I do believe he's getting stronger, my dear.
Why, of course, Bob. He gets stronger every day.
Such a bustle ensued that you might have thought Christmas dinner the rarest phenomenon, and not an event that occurred with such annual regularity.
Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy hissing hot.
Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor.
Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce.
And Martha dusted hot plates.
And Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table.
At last the dishes were set on and grace was said.
For what we are about to receive, may the good Lord make us truly thankful. Amen.
Amen.
A Merry Christmas to us all, my dear. God bless us.
God bless us, everyone.
Spirit, tell me if Tiny Tim will live.
I see a vacant seat in the poor chimney corner and a crutch without an owner carefully preserved. If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die.
No, kind spirit. Say he will be spared.
If these shadows remain unaltered by the future, none other of my race will find him here. What then? If he be like to die, he had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Will you decide what men shall live and what men shall die? It may be that in the sight of heaven you are more worthless and less fit to live than millions like this poor man's child.
Mr. Scrooge, I give you Mr. Scrooge, the founder of the feast.
The founder of the feast, indeed. I wish I had him here. I give him a piece of my mind to feast upon, and I'm sure he'd have a good appetite for it.
My dear, the children, Christmas Day.
It should be Christmas Day, I am sure, on which one drinks to the health of such an odious, stingy, hard, unfeeling man as Mr. Scrooge. You know he is, Robert. Nobody knows it better than you do, poor fellow.
But my dear, it's Christmas Day.
I'll drink to his health for your sake and for the day's, not for his. Long life to him, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. He'll be very merry and very happy indeed, I have no doubt.
Mr. Scrooge.
Mr. Scrooge.
And now, without a word of warning, they stood upon a bleak and desert moor, where monstrous masses of rude stone were cast about as though it were the burial place of giants. Nothing would grow here but moss and furze and coarse, rank grass, lost in the thick gloom of darkest night.
What place is this?
A place where miners live, who labor in the bowels of the earth, but they know me, see?
The spirit did not tarry here, but bade Scrooge hold his robe, and then sped on to sea. Looking back, Scrooge saw the last of the land, a frightful range of rocks behind them. His ears were deafened by the thundering of water as it rolled and roared and raged among the dreadful caverns it had worn. Built upon a dismal reef of sunken rocks, there stood a solitary lighthouse. But even here, two men who watched the light had made a fire and wished each other Merry Christmas in their can of grog.
Again the ghost sped on, above the black and heaving sea, until being far away they lighted on a ship. They stood beside the helmsman at the wheel, the lookout in the bow, the officers who had the watch. Dark, ghostly figures in their several stations. But every man among them hummed a Christmas tune, or had a Christmas thought, or spoke below his breath to his companion of some bygone Christmas day, with homeward hopes belonging to it.
It was a great surprise to Scrooge to hear his nephew's hearty laugh.
He's a comical old fellow, that's the truth. Not so pleasant as he might. He said Christmas was a humbug. As I live, he believed it too.
More shame for him, Fred.
He's a comical old fellow, that's the truth. Not so pleasant as he might be. But his offences carry their own punishment, and I have nothing to say against him.
I'm sure he is very rich, Fred. At least you always tell me so.
What of that, my dear? His wealth is of no use to him. He don't do any good with it. He don't make himself comfortable with it. He hasn't the satisfaction of thinking that he's ever going to benefit us with it.
I have no patience with him.
Oh, I have. I feel sorry for him. I couldn't be angry with him if I'd tried. Why, who suffers from all his ill whims? Himself, always. Here he takes it into his head to dislike us and won't come and dine with us. Well, what's the consequence? You don't miss much of a dinner.
Indeed, I believe he loses a very good dinner.
Well, I'm very glad to hear it, because I haven't great faith in these young housekeepers. What do you say, Topper?
Oh, I'm only a poor wretched outcast of a bachelor, and have no right to venture an opinion on any type of domestic topic whatsoever.
Do go on, Fred. He never finishes what he begins to say. He's such a ridiculous fellow.
I'm only going to say that the consequence of his taking a dislike to us and not making merry with us is, as I think that he loses some pleasant moments, which could do him no harm. I mean to give him the same chance every year, for I pity him. He may rail at Christmas till he dies, but he can't help thinking better of it. I defy him if he finds me going there year after year in good temper and saying, "Uncle Scrooge, how are you?" If it only puts him in the vein to give his poor clerk £50, that's something.
Let's have a game.
Forfeits. Let's play a round of forfeits.
Let's play blind man's bluff.
Yes, blind man's bluff.
Well, who's to be our first blind man? How about a poor wretched outcast of a bachelor? Topper?
Yes, Topper.
Can you see, old friend? All right, well, let me spin you around. 1, 2, 3.
There might have been 20 people there, young and old, but they all played, and so did Scrooge.
Oh, Spirit, I don't know when I've had so much fun. I feel like a schoolboy. May we stay until the guests depart?
That we cannot do. My time grows short.
Here's a new game. Only a half hour more, Spirit. Only one, please.
This is a game called Yes and No. I'm going to think of something, and the rest of you must guess what it is by asking questions. And I can only answer yes or no, as the case may be.
He was thinking of an animal.
A live animal.
A rather disagreeable animal.
A savage animal?
An animal that growled and grunted sometimes.
And talked sometimes?
Is it a horse?
No.
Is it an ass?
No.
Is it a cow or a bull?
No.
Is it a tiger?
Pig?
A dog?
A bear?
A cat?
No, 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 no.
I have found it out. I know what it is, Fred. I know what it is.
What is it?
It's your Uncle Scrooge.
He has given us plenty of merriment tonight, I'm sure. And it would be ungrateful not to drink to his health. Here is a glass of mulled wine ready to the hand, and I say, Uncle Scrooge.
The whole scene passed off in the breath of the last words spoken, and he and the spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end.
It was a long night, if it were only a night. But Scrooge had his doubts of this. For the whole of the Christmas holidays it seemed condensed into those few hours. It was strange, too, that while Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the ghost grew older, clearly older.
Are spirits' lives so short?
My life upon this globe is very brief. It ends tonight.
Tonight?
Tonight at midnight. The time is drawing near.
Spirit, forgive me if I'm not justified in what I ask, but I see something strange and not belonging to yourself protruding from your skirt. Is it a foot or a claw?
It might be a claw, for the flesh there is upon it. Look here.
In the folds of its robe it brought two children. They were a boy and a girl, yellow, meager, ragged.
Where graceful youth should have filled their features, a stale and shriveled hand like that of age had pinched and twisted and pulled them into shreds. Where angels might have sat enthroned, devils lurked and glared out menacing.
No change, no degradation, no perversion of humanity in any grade through all the mysteries of wonderful creation has monsters half so horrible and dread.
Spirit! Are they yours?
They are man's, and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. This boy is ignorant, this girl is wont. Beware them both in all of their degree, but most of all, beware this boy. For on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased.
Have they no refuge or resource?
Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? Are there no prisons? Are there no workhouses? Are there no prisons? Are there no
Scrooge
workhouses?
looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. He remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.
Am I in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come? You're about to show me shadows of things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us. Is that so, Spirit? I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. But I know your purpose is to do me good, as I hope to live to be another man from what I was. I am prepared to bear your company and do it with a thankful heart. Do you not speak to me? Lead on, then. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, Spirit.
They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them and encompass them of its own act. But there they were, among the merchants who hurried up and down and chinked the money in their pockets, conversed in groups and looked at their watches and trifled thoughtfully with their great gold seals.
I don't know much about it. I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
What has he done with his money?
God knows.
I haven't heard. Left it to his company, perhaps. Well, he hasn't left it to me, that's all I know.
It's likely to be a very cheap funeral, for upon my life, I don't know of anybody to go for it. Suppose we make up a party and volunteer.
Now, I don't mind going if a lunch is provided, but I must be fed if I make one.
I'll offer to go if anyone else will. I'm not sure I wasn't his most particular friend, for we used to stop and talk whenever we met.
How are you doing?
Well, Old Scratch has got his own at last, eh?
So I'm told. Cold, isn't it?
Seasonable for Christmas time. You're not going to the funeral, I suppose.
No, just something else to think of. Good morning.
Not another word. That was their meeting, their conversation, and their parting.
They left the busy scene and went into an obscure part of the town. The ways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people half naked, drunken, slipshod, ugly. Alleys and archways, like so many cesspools, disgorged their offences of smell and dirt and life upon the straggling streets, and the whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth, with misery.
Far in this den of infamous resort, there was a low-browed, beetling shop below a penthouse roof where iron, old rags, bottles, bones, and greasy offal were bought. Sitting in among the wares he dealt in by a charcoal stove made of old bricks was a gray-haired rascal nearly 70 years of age.
Let the charwoman alone to be the first, let the laundress alone to be the second, and the undertaker's man alone to be the third.
Look here, old Joey, is there a chance if we haven't all three met without meaning it?
Ah, you couldn't have met in a better place, my dears. Come into the parlour. You were made free of it long ago, and the other two ain't strangers. But we're all suitable to our calling, we're well matched. Come into the parlour, come into the parlour.
What odds, Mrs. Dilber? Every person has the right to look after themselves. He always did.
That's true indeed, no man more so.
Why then, don't stand there staring as if you was afraid, woman. We're not going to be calls in each other's coats, I suppose.
No, indeed.
I should hope not.
Who's the worse for the loss of a few things like these? Not a dead man, I suppose.
No, indeed.
If he wanted to keep him after he was dead, wicked old screw, why wasn't he more natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was struck down with death instead of lying there gasping out his last alone by himself.
It's the truest word that ever was spoke. It's a judgment on him.
I wish it had been a little heavier judgment, and it should have been. You may depend upon it, if I could have laid my hands on anything else. Open the bundle, Joe, and let me know the value of it. Speak out plain. I'm not afraid to go first, nor afraid for them to see it. We knew pretty well that we was helping ourselves before we met here, I believe. It's no sin. Open the bundle, Joe.
Begging your pardon, ladies, I'm sure, but if you don't mind, I'll go first. What do you say, Joseph?
Not very extensive all now, is it? A sealed pencil case, pair of sleeve buttons, a woman's brooch, no great value where all. Here's your account. I wouldn't put in another sixpence if I were to be boiled alive for not doing it. Who's next?
I'll go next, Joe, seeing as I was here first.
Let's see, sheets and towels, little wearing apparel, 2 old-fashioned teaspoons.
Silver.
2 old-fashioned silver teaspoons. A pair of sugar tongs and a few boots. Well, there you go, my love. Always gives too much to the ladies. It's a weakness of mine. That's the way I ruined myself. That's your account. If you ask me for another penny, I'd repent of being so liberal and knock off half a crown.
And now undo my bundle, Joe.
What do you call this? Bed curtains?
Aye, bed curtains.
You don't mean to say that you took him down, brings it all with him lying there?
Yes, I do. Why not?
You were born to make a fortune, and you'll certainly do it.
I certainly shan't hold my hand when I can get anything in it by reaching it out for the sake of such a man as he was, I promise you.
Are these his blankets?
Who else do you think? He isn't likely to catch cold without them now, is he?
Hope he didn't die of anything catching, eh?
Don't you be afraid of that, Joe. I ain't so fond of his company that I'd loiter about him for such things if he did. You may look through that shirt till your eyes ache, Joe, but you won't find a hole in it, nor a threadbare place. It's the best he had, and a fine one too. I'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me.
And, what do you call the wasting of it?
Putting it on him to be buried in, to be sure. Now, was clean enough to do it, but I took it off again. If calico ain't good enough for such a purpose, it isn't good enough for anything. It's quite as becoming to the body. Can't look any uglier than he did in that one. This is the end of it, you see. He frightened everyone away from him when he was alive to profit us when he was dead.
Spirit, I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heaven, what is this?
The scene had changed, and now Scrooge almost touched a bed. A bare, uncurtained bed. And on it, plundered and bereft, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this man. He lay in the dark, empty house with not a man, a woman, a child to say, "He was kind to me. For the memory of one kind word, I will be kind to him. For his goodness, I will remember him."
Instead, a cat was tearing at the door, and there was a sound of gnawing rats beneath the hearthstone. What they wanted in the room of death, and why they were so restless and disturbed, Scrooge did not dare to think.
Spirit, this is a fearful place. In leaving it, I shall not leave its lesson. Trust me, let us go. I understand, and I would do it if I could, but I have not the power, Spirit. I have not the power. Let me see some tenderness connected with the death, or this dark chamber spirit will be forever present in me.
Like a passing shadow, they stood now in Camden Town, in the Cratchit's dwelling. But there was no joyous bustling now. All seemed muted, mournful, bereft.
And he took a child and set him in the midst of them. And then he said, "Mother, are you all right?"
The color hurts my eyes, that's all. They're better now again. It makes them weak by the candlelight. I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he came home for the world. It must be near his time.
Past it rather, but I think he walks slower than he used to these past few evenings, Mother.
I've known him to walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder very fast indeed.
And so have I, often.
And so have I.
And so have I.
But he was very light to carry, and your father left him so that it was no trouble. No trouble at all. And there's your father at the door.
Father?
Don't mind it, Father. Don't be grieved.
Thank you, my dears. The grave clothes are coming along so well, my dear. They should be done long before Sunday.
Sunday? You went and saw that place today then, Robert?
Yes, my dear. I wish you all could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday. My little child. I saw Mr. Scrooge's nephew today. He was ever so kind. He saw that I was down.
Oh, Bob.
Just a little down, you know, my dear. And he said, "I'm heartily sorry, Mr. Cratchit, and I'm heartily sorry for your good wife." By the by, how he ever knew that, I don't know.
Knew what, my dear?
Why, that you were a good wife.
Everybody knows that.
Very well observed, my boy. I hope they do. If I can be of service to you in any way, pray come to me. It really seemed as if he'd known our Tiny Tim and felt with us.
I'm sure he's a good soul.
You would be sure of it, my dear. You saw and spoke to him. I shouldn't at all be surprised. Mark what I say. If he got our Peter a better situation.
Only hear that, Peter.
And then Peter will be keeping company with someone and setting up for himself.
Peter's getting married. Peter's getting married.
Get along with you.
It is just as likely as not one of these days. Though there's plenty of time for that, my dear. But however and whenever we are apart from one another, I'm sure we shall none of us forget poor Tiny Tim, shall we? Or this first parting that there was among us.
Never, Father.
Never.
Never, ever.
And I know, my dears, that when we recollect how patient and how mild he was, although he was little child, we shall not quarrel easily among ourselves and forget poor Tiny Tim in doing it.
No, never, Father.
Never, ever, ever.
Oh, Bob.
I am very happy, my dear. I am very happy.
Spectre, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I don't know how. Tell me, what man was it whom we saw lying dead?
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to the massive iron gates of a churchyard. Here, then, the wretched man whose name he had now to learn lay underneath the ground.
It was a worthy place, overrun by grass and weeds, choked up with too much burying, fat with repleted appetite. A worthy place.
Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of things that will be? Or are they the shadows of things that may be only? Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends to which, if persevered in, they must lead, but if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus from what you show me.
The spirit pointed to a low, snow-covered tomb. Scrooge knelt before the grave, wiped away the snow, and beheld the name engraved upon the slab. Ebenezer Scrooge.
No, Spirit, no! 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 Spirit, hear me! I am not the man that I was. I will not be the man that I must have been, but for this intercourse. Why show me this, if I am all past all hope? Good Spirit, your nature intercedes for me, and it pities me. Show me that I yet may change these shadows, for you have shown me by an altered life. I will honor Christmas in my heart, try to keep it all the year, in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach me. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writings on this stone. I will live in the past, present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley. Heaven and Christmas be praised for this. I say it on my knees, Jacob, on my knees. Bed curtains. They're not torn. They're not torn rings at all. They're here. I'm here. Shadows of things that would have been, they may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will be. I don't know what to do. I'm as light as a feather. I'm as happy as an angel. I'm as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to all. A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. It's all true. It all happened. I don't know what day it is. I don't know how long I've been gone. I don't know how long I've been with the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm like a baby. Oh, never mind. I don't care. I'd rather be a baby.
He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing out the lustiest peals he had ever heard.
glorious. Hey! You boy! What's today?
Today? Why, it's Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. And they can do anything they like. Of course they can. Of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello?
Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner?
I should hope I did.
Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize, but the big one.
What? The one big as me?
What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck.
It's hanging there now.
Is it? Go and buy it. No, I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell him to bring it here. Then I may give the direction where to take it. Come back with the man, I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him less than 5 minutes, I'll give you half a crown.
Yes, sir.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shall know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
Scrooge dressed himself all in his best and at last got out into the streets.
The people were by this time pouring forth just as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delighted smile.
He had not gone far when, coming on towards him, he beheld the portly gentleman who had walked into his counting house the day before and said, "Scrooge and Marley's, I believe." It sent a pang across his heart to think how these old gentlemen would look upon him, but he knew what path lay before him, and he took it.
My dear sirs, how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Mr. Scrooge?
Yes, that is my name. I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon. And will you have the goodness of maybe 5?
Lord bless me. My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?
If you please, not a farthing less. The great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favor?
My dear sir, I don't know what to say to such munificence.
Don't say anything, please. Just come and see me. Will you come and see me?
We will. We will.
We will.
Thank you. I'm much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you.
He went to church
and walked about the streets
and watched the people hurrying to and fro
and patted children on the head
and questioned beggars
and looked down into the kitchens of houses
and looked up to the windows
and found that everything
could yield him pleasure. In the afternoon, he turned his steps towards his nephew's home.
Oh, is your master at home, my dear? Nice girl, very.
Yes, sir.
Where is he, my love?
He's in the dining room, sir, along with the mistress. I'll show you the way, if you please.
Thank ye, but he knows me. I'll show myself then. Fred?
Why, bless my soul.
Who's that? Who's there, Fred?
It's I, Uncle Scrooge. I've come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?
Let him in? It's a mercy you didn't shake his arm off.
He was at home in 5 minutes.
Nothing could be heartier.
Wonderful party.
Wonderful games.
Wonderful unanimity.
Wonderful happiness.
Oh, but he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he had his heart set upon. And he did it.
The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1:15. No Bob. He was a full 18 minutes and a half behind his time.
Hello? What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir. I'm behind my time.
You are? Yes, I think you are. Sit this way, sir, if you please.
It's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir.
Now, I'll tell you what, my friend. I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, I'm about to raise your salary. A Merry Christmas, Bob! A Merry Christmas, my good fellow, that I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of steaming punch, Bob. Now make up the fires and buy another coal-scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit. Ha ha!
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father.
He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city ever knew. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge.
May that truly be said of us, and all of us. And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone.